despite mounting international pressure and deepening humanitarian catastrophe. The latest round of ceasefire negotiations aimed at halting the fighting in Gaza collapsed late Thursday night, dashing hopes for a resolution to a war now entering its 9th month. The breakdown in talks, held in Cairo with delegations from Israel, Hamas, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, marks the third failed attempt in as many months to forge a temporary truce. The deadlock leaves over 2 million Palestinians trapped in a tightening siege, with dwindling access to food, water, and medical supplies, while southern Israel remains gripped by anxiety over continued rocket fire and hostage uncertainty. A senior Egyptian official involved in the mediation told Al Masri Al-Yum that talks fell apart over 2 core issues: the timing and scope of a prisoner-hostage exchange, and guarantees for a phased Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Neither side is willing to take the first step, the official said on condition of anonymity. Israel demands the release of all living hostages before easing its military operations. Hamas refuses unless there's a clear commitment to a full ceasefire and troop withdrawal. According to the official, Egyptian intelligence intermediaries spent over 2 weeks shuttling between hotel suites and secure locations in Cairo, attempting to broker a compromise. But last night, after a 10-hour closed-door session, both delegations walked out. The Hamas delegation returned to Doha this morning. The Israeli representatives flew back to Tel Aviv overnight aboard a military jet. Israeli Prime Minister David Golan, addressing reporters in Jerusalem Friday morning, blamed Hamas for the impasse. "We are ready to stop fighting tomorrow if our people are returned. But Hamas insists on conditions that amount to surrender," Golan said. "We will not negotiate with a gun to our heads while our citizens are still held underground." In a statement released early Friday, Hamas accused Israel of negotiating in bad faith and accused the U.S. of enabling Israeli intransigence. "There can be no ceasefire while our people are being killed daily and the siege on Gaza intensifies," said Khalil al-Hayya, deputy political leader of Hamas. "We will not abandon the resistance." Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began in October 2024, with roughly 70% of them believed to be civilians. More than 1.4 million people are now displaced within the territory, many of them sheltering in crumbling school buildings or makeshift tents across southern Gaza. The Rafah border crossing with Egypt remains closed, sealed by Egyptian authorities after Israeli forces launched a controversial incursion into the southern city in May, citing the presence of Hamas tunnel networks. Aid convoys have been stalled for weeks, while Gaza's hospitals, many of them operating without electricity, struggle to cope with injuries from near-daily bombardments. In Khan Yunis, where the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, have maintained a partial presence for months, residents reported renewed strikes on Thursday evening as the Cairo talks faltered. "We were praying for peace, but we knew it was too good to be true," said Mariam Qasim, a 41-year-old mother of 3 whose family has been displaced 4 times since October. "Every time we hear about negotiations, we prepare our children to hope again. And every time, that hope is broken." The collapse of talks has sparked alarm from key international actors, including the United States, which had dispatched CIA Director William Burns and White House Middle East envoy Brett McGurk to support Egyptian efforts. "This is a setback, yes," McGurk told reporters in Cairo. "But the U.S. remains committed to a diplomatic path forward. The cost of failure is too high for Israelis, Palestinians, and the region." France, Germany, and the United Kingdom issued a joint statement Friday afternoon, calling for an immediate humanitarian truce to prevent further loss of innocent life. "The international community cannot stand idle as Gaza descends further into catastrophe," the statement read. "We urge all parties to resume negotiations without delay." Behind closed doors, however, officials are growing increasingly pessimistic. A European diplomat familiar with the talks said momentum is waning. Both sides are entrenched. Hamas sees resistance as its only currency now. Israel sees military pressure as the only way to free its hostages, the diplomat said. "There's no trust, no third-party enforcement, and no real appetite for concessions. One of the thorniest issues remains the fate of the estimated 118 Israeli and foreign hostages still believed to be held by Hamas and other armed groups inside Gaza. Hamas insists that any hostage release must be tied to the release of thousands of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails, including high-profile militants and long-serving detainees. Israel has agreed in principle to a phased exchange but refuses to release those convicted of violent attacks. In December, a brief 7-day truce saw 78 hostages freed in exchange for 240 Palestinian detainees. But the deal quickly fell apart after resumed hostilities in northern Gaza. Families of hostages, many of whom have grown increasingly critical of the Israeli government's handling of negotiations, held another protest outside the Knesset in Jerusalem on Thursday evening. "We don't care who started it or who is to blame," said Abigail Ben-Dor, whose 19-year-old son Tomer is believed to be held by Hamas. "We want our children home. Not one more week. Not one more day." With no ceasefire in sight and both sides trading blame, the war shows no sign of ending soon. Israeli airstrikes continued across Gaza on Friday, while Hamas's military wing claimed responsibility for launching at least a dozen rockets towards Sderot and Ashkelon. No casualties were reported. Analysts warn that unless a breakthrough is found soon, the conflict could enter a dangerous new phase, one that drags neighboring Lebanon, Iran, or regional militias further into the fray. "The longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to untangle," said Amal Nassibeh, a fellow at the Carnegie Middle East Center. "Each round of failure erodes the very foundation of diplomacy. Eventually, there's nothing left but war." Correction. A previous version of this article misstated the number of displaced persons in Gaza. It is 1.4 million, not 1.2 million.